Welcome to Retrain Your Thinking with Pastor Johnny. Glad to have you here today, where if you enlighten your mindset, you can change your world. I have an outstanding guest today, Pastor John Warren.
And I thank you for being here and the opportunity to have some comments about the program that we've been trying to get started.
All right, so good to have you here. And we're going to be talking today about a project that Pastor Warren has been the one who really geared it and started it, and he has gathered all the information. He's been the curriculum writer for this project called the Color of Compromise Project. But first, I want you to tell us a little bit about you. What are you currently involved in now, other than this project?
Well, I'm currently involved in church activity as the uh, pastor in charge of the administration of the church there in Cleburne, Texas. And I'm also on the city council. um, this coming May, I will have served 20 years on the city council and 13 years as mayor pro tem. And it's been very exciting and very challenging trying to get certain issues addressed through that process. Also, I have served as the president of the school board. I served 3 terms on the school board there in Cleveland, uh, 3 years each term for a total of 9 years. And during all of that time, I was a teacher in the independent school district there in Cleveland. Also, prior to being a school teacher there in Cleveland, I was teaching in Alvarado, Texas, in the high school there in math and science department, and finally went to Cleburne in the junior high and high school environment. And I've just tried to be a part and uh, make some strides in terms of making Cleburne a better place to live, and also trying to see to it that some of the things that we have been denied as a result of who we are come to fruition.
That sounds great. That's a lot. That is a lot to do. Well, but tell me now your tenure as on the city council. You're still on the city council now.
I'm currently still on the
On the
city
city
council.
council, have
Yes.
there been any other African Americans to serve on that city
Yes, there
council?
have been two prior to myself. No, three prior to myself. And I would I was not interested in getting involved with the city council, but the firemen in Cleveland came to me and asked me to run, and so I did, and here I am. I'm
Yes.
still there.
20 years later.
20 years later.
All right.
Yes.
And you said you served as mayor pro tem?
I served mayor pro tem 13 of those years.
And
And this past January, they voted me mayor pro tem again,
All right.
but I kindly resigned because I find that position as sometimes being ancillary.
Okay.
And so, I don't have the time either. But I appreciate the confidence that the
Yes.
council has in me.
And
Yes.
yes. What does a mayor pro tem do? What's
Well,
that all about?
it's just similar to, for an example, like vice president of the United States, and second in command.
Second in
And
command.
whenever the mayor can't, I'm supposed to
Oh,
do.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That sounds really interesting. Well, I do know you also served as a juvenile youth correction officer.
Yeah, during it's interesting. We anticipating the Thanksgiving holidays because it was during the Thanksgiving holidays in 1981 that I resigned from teaching, and I went to work for Chaparral Steel in Midlothian, Texas, and I ended up in the quality control division for them in the chemistry side of that job. And I worked there for about 18 months. And reason being, I was approached again by one of the district attorneys in Cleburne to come and hire in for the probation department. And so I reluctantly did that and ended up as the assistant director of probation and finally the director of juvenile services, where I retired in 2000.
And that probably, or did it, give you a heart to really want to reach young people? And I know you're an activist and you're really into getting into the racial reconciliation, which we're talking about today, and young people understanding who they are. Did that have any influence at all on your decisions to become such an activist?
Well, seeing all of some of the activities that I consider was inappropriate uh, concerning the black students and also the citizens there in Cleveland, I thought it best to get involved at that level. And luckily, one day while I was in Walmart, a young man approached me, a young white man approached me because he had observed some inequities that took place at that particular time. And he asked me, did I see the same incident going on? And so we became close, and we tried to get all of the ministers in Cleveland involved in sitting down and talking about racism. Racism, the word itself, is a volatile issue. Several people, especially white people and some blacks, they don't like to talk about it.
Yes.
And so, what I've tried to do is to find a way to talk about it that will not be accusatory to either party, black or white. And I've been successful, I think, at getting some people involved in that program.
Yes, and that's really how the Color of Compromise project got started.
Yes.
Yes, and
The the
yes,
documentary, The Color of Compromise, is just one of the documentaries that I had opportunity to see. The Uncomfortable Truth is
it's
another one.
another. Well, we're going to talk more about that when we come back from break, and we'll also be talking a little bit about the relationship you had with Scott Whitson, the young man, the other white pastor that you mentioned.
Yes.
So we'll see you after break with more from Reverend John Warren.
All right. And so we're supposed to keep.
Welcome back to Retrain Your Thinking with Pastor Johnny, and my guest today is Reverend John Warren. And Reverend Warren, just before break, we were mentioning how people can get in touch with you. So, what are some ways that people can get in touch with
Well,
you?
they can go on the City of Cleveland website and click on government, and not only will they see a picture of myself, but a bio. And my personal email address is my full name, John Warren, 1660 at att.net. And my phone number is area code 817-791-0753.
All right.
And that's the best way to get in touch with me.
So if
Yes.
somebody really wants to reach you,
Yes.
then those are the ways that they
Yes.
can get in touch with you.
Sure.
That sounds good. Another thing we were talking about just before the break is you mentioned the young man you met in Walmart, and from that, a coalition developed where the two of you tried to start some racial reconciliation projects and activities in Cleburne, and he just happened to have been white. And the Cleburne Times picked that up a good picture of you. And who is this?
Scott Whitson.
Scott
Scott
Whitson.
Whitson,
All
yeah,
right.
that's his
Okay.
name.
Is his name.
It's interesting that on that particular morning, I was standing in the line and waiting to check out, and Scott was behind me, and before me was a young black man trying to check out, and there was some altercation between he and the person who was checking him out, and it got to be pretty
Intense.
pretty
Yes.
tense.
Yes.
But anyway, we all got checked out, and as I started out the door, Scott touched me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, did you see that?" And he was very interested and concerned about how that young man was treated. And as a result of that, Scott and I got together and we tried to motivate other ministers to get involved and let's talk about racism and what we can do to get other people involved and perhaps make some ends, in other words, understanding
Yes.
between the races.
Yes. Yes.
At that particular time, several pastors got on board with us, but over a period of time, they began to drop out for various reasons. And Scott left and moved away. And here recently, we've gotten back together again. And I was mentioning a moment ago how it was that being able to observe the documentaries, The Color of Compromise and Uncomfortable Truth, and several other documentaries on television, gave me the idea of a different approach to talking about racism.
Yes.
And my approach is that given the fact that these particular documentaries expose the social construct that was made in America over a period of history, racism being one of them, is that I'm trying to convince whites and blacks that we are all victims of a social issue. And I try to take that approach to racism in order to ease that volatile situation when people
Okay.
feel like they're being accused
Accused.
of
We're all
being mean and hateful
victims.
to me.
We're all
But we are
victims, you
all
say.
victims of
And
it.
exactly what do you mean by you're saying blacks as well as whites
We
are
are,
all
we're all
victims
victims.
of a
That's right,
of
because
a
the government,
volatile system? Is
that's
that what you
right,
said?
that's right.
All right.
Because these documentaries, the information in these documentaries expose the complicity between the government and the churches, complicit in promoting racism
All right.
and promoting division. And that's one of the ills of America. Um, we concentrate on our differences rather than who we really are,
Boy, that's
our
interesting.
humanity.
That is really,
And
really
my
interesting.
approach is to try to get people to understand, and it's a biblical thing.
Mhm.
We need to recognize our humanity, set aside what the differences are,
Mhm.
and recognize our humanity.
And so that's really what the Color of Compromise project is all about.
That's right.
Well, I do know that you're also the president of the East Cleburne Ministerial Alliance, of which I am a member as well. Very happy.
Yes.
Now, out of it, of course, you and I together have started several projects that
Mhm.
we're interested in. One is even presenting a workshop to the police department in Cleburne, Texas,
Yeah.
which you set up,
Mhm.
and we have a great reporter from the Cleburne Times Review. He picked that up,
Yeah.
and it was in the newspaper for
Mhm.
members and people of Cleburne to see. But here, in the police department, we even had a workshop. But you're being the president of the East Cleburne Ministerial Alliance. How did you get this project working with the members of the East Cleburne Ministerial Alliance and brought in also the members of the Cleburne, which is mainly white, Ministerial Alliance? getting those two together? How'd you do that?
Well, Scott has been a catalyst for that. Uh, he pastors a church in Burleson, Texas, and he was instrumental in providing a document that would promote the interests of several ministers, not only in Cleburne but there in Burleson. And hopefully, we want it to be countywide. And but as it is, there are just very few that's been involved in it. And but I think we're being successful at some point
In
in
time.
it. Yeah.
Well, just the very fact that you have put out there in the city where there's I keep reiterating that 3% of the city, the population is black. What is what's the population of Cleburne? About
Population of Cleveland now is slightly more than 30,000.
slightly more.
Slightly
And
more
what
than
is the
30,000.
percentage of African
I would
Americans?
imagine anywhere from 3 to 5%.
All right, okay.
And most of those are elderly.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
when I, back in the 80s, I was, and as president of the NAACP, I was one of the persons who was very involved in trying to get the city council to go to single member districts. So that would ensure the opportunity of a black to represent single
Representation.
member District
Yeah.
4, which is single member District 4 now.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about that more when we come back from break because I'm interested in knowing how other small towns can also get this kind of interaction and activity going. We'll see you in a few minutes when we come back from break.
Well,
All
I tell
right,
you what,
Red. Welcome back to Retrain Your Thinking with Pastor Johnny. Now, I'm here with Pastor John Warren, and boy, have we been having a good conversation. But we're going to talk more right now about the project, The Color of Compromise. We know that that is a DVD, but you chose that one to be the guide, the catalyst for bringing together black and white pastors in the city of Cleburne. Why did you choose that DVD?
well, that particular document showed that how it is that our government and even the religious system, the churches, were complicit in separating the races.
And what does that mean, complicit in separating the
Well, they set up
races?
certain policies, and for an example, back in 1662 in Virginia, uh, when when we had the actual slaves and the indentured slaves working together, and to keep them from you know forming a union, so to speak, against the so-called system to be at that time, certain laws were made to separate them. And when that happened, they took the the white indentured slaves and made them overseers of the slaves. And they did everything possible to see to it that there was a social construct between them, especially the marriages between them,
Yes,
uh, to keep that from happening.
yes.
And as a
So,
result, over the period of years, there have been several legislative things that have been done in order to perpetuate what we call racism today. And as a result of that, I began to think that, hey, not we're all victims of a system that was set in place to benefit certain people. And I found that to be very helpful in presenting what we call uh, compromise, racial uh, uh, compromise. I found that to be some people are more easily addressed with that particular issue that way,
Right.
rather than
Yes.
making them feel like we are accusing them of being a racist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that seems to be a hot spot, a key word that triggers a lot of emotions. And that is the word racist, being a racist. Many black people, from my understanding and knowledge, don't think they can be racist because the system is not controlled in any way by blacks, but yet many whites think that blacks can be racist as well. What do you think about that?
Well, blacks are not racist. We're prejudiced. We're prejudiced amongst each other, you know. But racism in itself is having some power to relegate certain people to certain positions. And that's what has been done over the history of America. And I think one of the things that has caused it to be such a problem in America is because we will not sit and talk about it. Um, Several of the ministers, the white ministers that got involved with our project, admitted when I presented some historical facts to them, that they never heard of that before. And the reason being, that there has been a concerted effort to keep that information from many whites. And when they heard about it, they began to be more amenable to listening to what the problems are. And so that's been my approach, to make them feel like, or to give them the information that, hey, you and I both are victims of a system that was perpetuated specifically to
Yes.
keep us apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's another very, very good point that's worth remembering and worth knowing. Now, going back to the video on the color of compromise, there were several black pastors and several white pastors involved, and the whole purpose was looking at segments, I understand, and having the dialogue
Yes.
after then.
Yeah.
So, from that, do you think it's been effective?
I think it's been real effective for those who have participated. As I mentioned earlier, some of the white ministers have dropped out of the program. And I have not let that bother me. I have told the black ministers that continue in the program, and the white minister, if there's only one or two there, that's good, that's great. We're going to continue the program. And hopefully they will go back into their particular environment and inspire others to get involved. And we have, some of the members of their churches has attended our program.
That's good.
And
Now, what about black ministers? Have you had any problems with them
well, I've had the
attending?
same problem with them as I had with the whites.
Okay.
That they just, it's a volatile. I won't use that word volatile, but it makes some people feel uneasy to talk about it. But I don't mind talking about it because it's real, it's true, it's factual, and it's happening right now.
Yes.
And if America doesn't sit down and talk about it, reconciliation is a problem.
Yeah.
We all have to apologize to one another. Let me give you an example of what I mentioned to one young man, a white young man. He may have lost some family members during the Civil War. There were some 600,000 people lost in that segment in that war. Some of them might have been his family members, and he's real adamant about talking about the Civil War and maybe uh, the flag, you know, that they use. And so I told him I I have feeling for him for that, you know, and I think he should be able to hold sacred the Confederate flag. But let me tell you what it means to me. See, that's the problem right there. There's a different meaning to me. My grandfather, who was raised in Atlanta, Georgia, during the Reconstruction period, the Klan rode their horses on the porch of the house, shot out the windows of the house while waving a Confederate flag. So to me, it's a hate symbol. But to him, his family died under that flag. It's sacred. So how can we come to some compromise?
Some compromise.
You know?
That
Now,
is
if you
so
think the flag is sacred,
yes,
why don't you stop the Klan from using it as a hate symbol?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
That's
Reverend,
where
I
we
tell
need.
you,
That's where we
yes,
need to get. You know.
yeah. Well, this is
It,
also interesting. Now, tell us again if somebody wants to get in touch with you and just continue this conversation, just to know more about it, and said, how can I get this started in my community? How can they get in touch with you?
well, they can go on the Cleburne City of Cleburne website and click on government, and not only will they see a picture of me, but they'll also see my bio
Okay.
and several other things concerning my service
All
as a
right.
city councilman.
Very good. And
And my email
all
address, my
right.
full name,
Okay.
John Warren,
Okay.
1660 at att.net.
Well, this has been another episode of Retrain Your Thinking with Pastor Johnny. We're so glad you've joined us. If you want to get in touch with our guest, you just heard his information. So join us again, and bye for now. Pastor Johnny, retrain your thinking. And remember, don't just think about it, be about it.
All right then.
All right.
Yeah.